Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Magic Pause podcast. It's your host here, Annalena. And today, with my beautiful guest, before I read your bio, I just want to give you a really warm welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I'm already just enjoying our connection so much. So I can't wait to have this conversation.
Me too. So, Jennifer Spor is the CEO and founder of her namesake company, co-author of two best-selling books, and host of Path of the Awakened Heart podcast. She's also a spiritual mentor, channel, and multidimensional healer for spiritual visionaries. And despite checking all the boxes off the list of what traditional society has taught it means to achieve success, Jennifer was just unfulfilled, like I think so many can relate to that, in her corporate retail career and life. She felt the call to make a bigger difference in the world. It was her own dark night of the soul and spiritual awakening that served as the catalyst to align her with her higher destiny. And it became Jennifer's mission to empower others, like you listeners, to live at the most authentic self, align with their purpose and mission, and bring their highest vision for sharing their gifts and being of service into reality. That's what it's all about, isn't it? I love it so much. I'm also
Yeah.
very excited to have this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That is what it's all about, being ourselves, being us, living expressed in that way and sharing our wisdom with each other.
Yeah, I have recently, and you know this, I'm all deep into human design and gene keys and all these things, but most recently I have been pulled finally more towards also the biblical teachings, because when I was younger, I had a hard time to connect to it, but
Mm.
through human design and gene keys, I have found more resonance to it. And there, everything is there, the same message too. Well, you're here to share your gifts with the world, and it's our responsibility, actually. That's our purpose, to be loving, to be kind, to help other people. And it's so simple, right? If you
Yeah,
just talk
it
about
is.
it. But it seems also to be one of the hardest things for us to accomplish, because we have born into a world most often where the story is you have to work hard, you have to pick the job that makes a lot of money, we have to do the thing that society expects of you or the family. And then, just like you, I was there myself about 6, 7 years ago, working in corporate. I mean, I was doing a great job. I was able to pay my bills. I was also grateful for that, but my soul was burning for a change and was telling me, you're not using the gifts you were given. Like, I was playing small. And it was scary also to have this realization, because the way the world is set up, okay, like, what am I going to do? Because we need to make money to
Mhm.
maintain our living, just in a way. So I would love to hear from your journey. Like, what was that big moment for you when you were still working in corporate? What was the spiritual awakening or the dark night of the soul for you?
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, I would say I love this question. And I also love to share that, we are eternal students and we are always evolving, right? We're always expanding higher and greater and bigger into more of the truth of who we are. I would say my first, tremendous awakening or shift did happen when I was still working in corporate. I actually worked in the retail industry for, gosh, it was probably over 23 years and started out at the age of 19 and at the end of my career, I had started from scratch working my way up that corporate ladder, right? And I was in corporate as a director toward the end of my career. And I've always been someone who's been very motivated to learn. And so basically, what happened is I spent all these years hustling and working hard and checked all those boxes off the list and reached a place where I was starting to think about what was next, which wasn't always the case because I thought, wow, I'm going to retire doing this work. You know what I mean? But I just felt like I wasn't learning or really making a difference anymore because I worked in store operations for a large retail company. And that was part of the motivation behind even being in corporate to begin with, is because I thought, wow, I can make a difference for all the people that are working in the stores, for the customers, right? To be in a position like that. But I just got to a point where I felt like there was just more and more bureaucracy, and it just was feeling like harder and harder to feel like I was making an impact. So I really started wondering what was next. I didn't take action right away because I had a fear of, what else would I do? Where else would I go? You know, making that kind of money and being in that kind of position, despite being in the leadership role that I was. I had a lot of masked insecurities, which,
Mhm.
you know, later on would end up being a lot of unhealed trauma and various other things in this life and other lives, right, that needed to be healed. What I did start doing right away was spending more time essentially rediscovering myself outside of my work, because I realized I really didn't know myself, because all of my time was spent focused on my career. And outside of that, pretty much the rest of my time was influenced by whatever my family or friends wanted to do, you know? So there was this journey that started of, wow, I'm wondering what's next, you know? Do I really even know who I am? Like, I know I've always considered myself to be a good person and a truthful person, but what else does that mean? And like, what do I really enjoy? So I embarked right away on that journey of rediscovery, which an awakening was happening, right? That was all forming essentially. And then it was really about a year and a half later. I still hadn't left my career. My mother at the time was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she was living on the opposite end of the country in the US. So she was in Idaho, which is where I live now, and I was on the East Coast. And it was during that time that I was flying back and forth a lot, trying to be present with her, to be present with my family. And I was constantly feeling conflicted. Like I had to make choices to either be present for my career or to be present with her. And there was this one moment that I remember as clearly as yesterday, um, that I was with her at her bedside, and there was a moment where my phone started blowing up from my work because there was an issue happening. And for what felt like the millionth time, I was being given yet another opportunity by God, right, to make a choice. Like, what are you going to choose to be present for in your life? And so it was that moment that I decided I'd had enough. Because I knew that in that moment, that was one of the last times I was going to see my mom alive here. And so I decided that I was finished, and that was the beginning of the end. And basically, what happened at the end of the day is that my mom passed shortly after that. I made a decision to voluntarily step down from my role in my career, because at the time remote work culture wasn't a thing.
Right, yeah.
So I was told, if you want to maintain this position, you need to live here. And I didn't want to live there anymore. I wanted to be closer to where my remaining family was in Idaho. So I stepped down from my job. Much like the lyrics of a country song, I like to say, because it's funny like that, I rented my house out in New Jersey, packed up my car and headed out west, drove across the country by myself, and basically started a new life. And it wasn't right then. It wasn't like I woke up one day and, oh, this is what I'm here, what I was meant to do. I had to make a leap of faith. So I came up with a plan, right? I left, I came back out here, and it was during that time of the awakening I was experiencing where I realized that, you know, because I had invested in a lot of therapists, healers, coaches, you know, people to support me in this big transition I was experiencing. But what I couldn't find at the time was someone who could support me in relating to what I was experiencing, and also supporting me in how to integrate who I was becoming into my life, right? Because as you know, these kind of shifts impact every part of our lives, our business, our career, our relationships, our bodies, everything. And so that was when I realized, you know what? I'm going to support other people in becoming the truth of who they are, essentially discovering that and pursuing their own path. And I tend to attract a lot of people who are also called to create a path in the sense of birthing something new, creating something new that isn't part of that conformist society, right? That we've all been immersed in for so long. So that was really it. And the rest is history. I started a business. I've had 2 podcasts now, and it's a path that I've committed to. It's not a business. Really, the business is the vehicle
Right, yeah.
for living my purpose and getting my mission and my work and those teachings and those gifts and wisdom out to the world in a greater way.
I love it. Two things that I took away from what you were saying, like this concept we often talk about, spiritual awakening. It's not just one split second, right? It's a
Yeah,
process.
it's a journey. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that moment, the defining moment was with your mom, where
Yep.
you knew you didn't have much time with her anymore, and you started to realize how silly all this corporate busyness is, and like what really matters in life, right? Was this kind of awakening. But then the entire process itself, it does take some time, you know, and it's going to be uncomfortable. We have to take some risk. Like you packed up the bags and just went back to Idaho and didn't know how it's all going to work out, right? Yeah, we have maybe somewhat of an idea, but I think out of your frustration from not receiving what you needed, which was also a gift for you, you were like, you know what, I'm gonna create this for other people. I think that's so beautiful. And I find this especially in the self-development world. Oftentimes people think that we have to be this perfect mentor, coach, get all these certifications to be able to do
Oh, yeah.
anything. But like you have everything you need in this very moment. And oftentimes, by what life brings you in terms of challenges, especially, that's often also bringing up the gift we are then actually here to share with others, right? Because they can relate
Yeah.
to your story.
I love so much that you talk about what you said about the need to get certifications. And this is something that's really key that I hope everyone is listening can take from our conversation to essentially, you know, expedite their own path to ascension and living expresses themselves, is that because we are all conditioned to believe that we need to look outside of ourselves for the solution, it's like you go through this journey of becoming you in phases, right? So I moved out here. I, at the time, pursued a coaching certification. It was a spiritually based coaching certification, but still, you know, I pursued many certifications, and there is a need for those, and there's certainly a benefit for those. At the same time, there can also be an element of you're still looking for an answer outside of yourself as to who you are. And that's why I had gone through that phase of my journey, right? And I even taught a certification in the past. I don't anymore. And my focus with the wisdom I'm sharing and my gifts and those I'm called to support is for them to find their own medicine, because we're living in such a transformational time that we're really at a very pivotal point right now of us being able to, with the increased awareness that's out there now, being able to bring forward our own gifts and to be celebrated in that and to really make a big, big difference.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And also talking a little bit about certification, because of course it's not black or white, right? Like I have taken so many certifications, and
Me
this
too.
was part of my journey, and they were incredibly transformational. And what I have found, especially the ones where it wasn't just the certification, what I learned, but I went through a transformation myself in the process. And anytime where you are actually empowered to get in touch with what's your style, how do you do things, and not just follow like a cookie cutter process, right? So I think that's probably the biggest distinction there. But yeah, it comes from this idea that oftentimes we don't stop looking for external knowledge because we always feel like we don't know enough, or we need to know more in order to be able
Yes,
to start a business or help people. But I think in every given moment, and there's actually a gate in the human design chart, it's gate 48, called the gate of wisdom, which is basically the message that you know exactly what you need to know in this very moment. And it will continue on in every moment. And sometimes we learn something new. Sometimes we do take a certification. Sometimes we need just a magic pause. And it just all evolves beautifully. But we always have the capacity to change another person's life with what we currently have.
absolutely. And whether it's a magic pause or a certification or something else, it's really just about being acutely tuned in to where you're being intuitively guided. I speak often about the importance of knowing what truth, your truth, feels like in your physical body,
Mhm.
and using that as the basis to make your decisions.
Yeah. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that? How
Yeah, so
how does it feel?
everyone's truth, everyone's reality is subjective, to their own unique journey here. But when I talk about truth, I'm talking about what is your truth? What do you know to be true? What do you know about who you are and why you're here? And being really anchored into what that feels like in your body. So for me, it feels very grounded, a knowing, like a neutral kind of knowing. There's a favorite quote that I love from Joan of Arc that says, I am not afraid. I was born to do this. So
Mhm.
you feel the groundedness of her energy, of that energy, of that she's so clear in her sense of self that no matter what her circumstances are or what's happening in the external world, right, she knows the path that she's moving forward on. And it's not about knowing every step of the path, it's being fortified in the truth of who you are, being really clear in who you are, and using that as the space with which to make all of your decisions from, right? Because there's so much noise in the world about this is the right way to do something, or do this way to achieve success. And we're literally living in a time where all of those constructs are crumbling.
Yep.
All that is not of divine truth
Mhm.
is crumbling. And the way to navigate that is you. The answer is you. The answer is being anchored into you, into your connection with the earth, into your connection with God.
Mhm. Yeah, you speak my language. Exactly. I'm like, yes, yes, I love everything so much. And I even use very similar words that I always say, like the old way is crumbling. I think anything that is not based on truth will fall apart. Uh,
Absolutely.
this is also why I always tell people, like, if you're living under lies, I mean, it's gonna get hard because the truth always sets you free.
Yeah.
The truth will always come out. And this is right now the truth we're speaking of is the truth of who you are, right? And I want to second what you said because I have the very similar experience in my body when I just know. I always tell my clients too, it feels very calm and grounding. It's like peace, actually, that feeling. It's like there's no hesitation, there's no questioning, there is no irritability, whatever you want to call it. And when I'm in this space, it just flows also effortlessly. And I may still have challenges on the way, but it's just this, yeah, it's the path of knowing. And I'm curious because I'm there now to myself, and still, like, I don't always have the answers, right? Because there's always a lot of change going on. But as I keep trusting myself, like the path shows itself. But if somebody right now that's listening doesn't feel that, like they feel maybe lost, or they feel like I have no idea what my path is, and maybe they are still stuck in a situation that is, they know deep inside is super misaligned with who they are, because I think that shift can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming for people. It's like, what would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, I know this is going to be right up your alley. The first step is really creating space for yourself, and to have the willingness to create that space for yourself to receive clarity, to receive the truth
Mhm.
of why you're feeling how you're feeling. And then the next step beyond that is being willing to take the actions. And some of them may feel scary. So we talk about using being really grounded in our truth as the basis for how we're navigating our life here. And it is simple. It is simple. That's the answer. And it is simple. What makes it feel complicated is our own fears from our human selves that come forward around what it means to actually take the actions that are in alignment with the truth of who we are. And that's really the journey. That's the journey of awakening. That's the journey of ascension. And we're also conditioned to believe that once we have something that we don't want to let go of it. And that's actually the opposite, the direct opposite of who we are as creator beings. We're meant to constantly evolve, and relationships are a great example, right? Because they can be some of our most profound teachers on our journey. It's understanding that some relationships in our lives will be with us for the duration of our incarnation here, and some relationships are only here for a season. And again, the easiest way to navigate all of that is to feel really clear in your sense of self and who you are, and when you are in that space, you know which relationships are for you and which aren't.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and then this, as you know, right, we have called this podcast The Magic Pause. And but it's actually to get clarity on what action to take. It's not to be like being in action, but
Yeah.
to give yourself the space, like you were talking about, to shift just gently into the direction, because we see this like when we have a boat on the ocean, and if the boat is just going blindly and all of a sudden it's landing in Africa, but oh, I wanted to go to England, if it would have paused at some point and like, okay, let me really feel what direction I want to pivot into, and then we just take that shift, and then we don't waste our life force energy, right? We actually use it into the aligned direction for us. And this is why slowing down, taking a pause, Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, that's it, right? That's really the big simple way for us. Yet it is so hard because I think we have so many distractions. I think you mentioned this too. And this is also interesting in my studies with the gene keys and human design. It also talks in the shadows all about it, right? That the big dilemma is that the world is busy, there are constant demands, there's so many distractions, which, yeah, is in a way the dark forces that are trying to prevent us from actually looking within, which is, I think, the longest path for us to walk, but the most beautiful and most rewarding, right? When we can get out of the head and really drop into the heart and connect to that space.
Yeah, absolutely. The heart is really key. It is the intersection of the spiritual and physical, and that's the whole idea of our journey here. Is it's the journey of becoming more and more deeply embodied in our divinity. We are this soul, this energy, this life form, having a human experience. And both Jesus and Mary Magdalene speak about that.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's all these teachings, right? They have all the wisdom. I truly believe that today that we need, what we can find in the Bible. And yeah, because it's all about this, like being of service to the world, helping other people through the unique gifts that we have been giving.
Yes.
Actually, today, and this is probably something that has come up in client sessions over and over again, when we talk about, okay, what's your purpose? You know, I'm always like, well, what comes really easy to you? You know, and because that's the thing we don't give ourselves credit for. It's this natural gift and talent you have. It almost feels like play. Definitely doesn't feel like work, you know, just like you and I having a conversation right now. It doesn't feel like work, what I learned work
Right.
is
It's
supposed to
easy.
be. It's fun, it's enjoyable. I actually feel energized after these conversations. I feel like I'm learning wisdom. We're also probably both sharing beautiful wisdom with the listeners, you know. So we're actually contributing at the same time. So it's also the sense of fulfillment that comes from it. And it's just so beautiful that we get to experience this, because 10 years ago, I didn't know what that reality can look like. You know, there is this idea that, well, you go to college, you get the job, you work until you're retired, you know, and then we're old. And so that we actually get to experience in this lifetime a way of living where we tap into this natural essence, this authenticity that we have. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what authenticity means to you.
Yeah, I mean, authenticity is essentially truth in the form of who you are as a being, as a life form, and living expressed as that.
Hmm.
And that's the challenge that a lot of us face, right? Is taking that journey to, what's the term in human design? Deconditioning and conditioning, whatever that term is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think human design is a great tool, by the way, to aid you in that endeavor to finding more about the truth of who you are. But that's really what authenticity is. It's not just knowing the truth of who you are, but it's also living embodied as that. That's how I define authenticity.
Mm. Yeah, but we have the courage, right, to be different and not just conform to what
And
we.
that's important. Yeah, it's important. It is about courage, because it's not about, like, because this is what happens too, is a lot of people delay taking action because they think, oh, I have to be in some sort of destination or space on my journey to then do
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And no, it's about just flowing every day, every moment, with wherever you're feeling guided, as you are, as you are. So yeah, it requires courage, absolutely, because a lot of times you are moving forward with fear.
Oh,
The difference
yes.
is that you have the conscious awareness now to know that staying in that space doesn't serve you. And you have this amazing gift of free will that God has given you to choose your path.
I love this, because oftentimes I think there is this conversation about, okay, so we have our God-given purpose, like we have our destined path. And then we may feel like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is, right?
Mhm.
But what we do have the power over, which you just like said, in every given moment, we can choose fear, right? And keep playing small and keep not following our truth, which oftentimes looks like people pleasing. Yeah, we do certain things because we're afraid we're not going to make enough money, we're not going to be able to support ourselves, or that other people get upset at us. It's again the
Mhm.
rejection, right? Or we can choose to follow our truth. And most often, like you said, and I've experienced this numerous times, and it's an ongoing journey, there is you know, the unknown. I don't know if it's going to work out, but there is this inner knowing it's what I'm supposed to do, but it's scary because it's new. So there's also fear coming up, but it's the fear that I'm aware of, I'm allowing it, but I'm taking the action anyways. And that's really when the magic starts to happen, when you start to grow and feel more fulfilled and you start to really have this moment where it just clicks. You're like, okay, I'm on my path. And even on that path, there's sometimes some stones, sometimes like you feel like you're lost, but you always keep finding your way back on there. Where you just
Absolutely.
have this overall sense of like, I am walking this path and I'm learning and I'm keep evolving and growing along the journey.
Yes. I was born to do this. Yeah.
David.
I'd love to elaborate a bit if it's okay on the
Mhm.
unknown,
Yes.
because that's another form of inversion, another program, right? We're taught that we are to fear an unknown path. And the unknown is equated with darkness, right? It's equated with the void. And the darkness is actually where the seeds of creation,
Yeah.
where the places of endings and new beginnings reside. So when you can be willing to explore that shadow side of yourself and keep exploring and keep taking actions that align with more of the truth of who you are, over time you learn to embrace those times when you're being faced with the unknown, when you feel like you're in that void. It's actually a space where you're being most held by the mother.
Yeah. Hmm. It's so interesting because I also always use the unknown in the context of manifestation because the known I have learned from quantum physics is just like 1 millionth of a percent or something. It's like next to nothing. And
Yeah.
this is how we, set your goals, make your vision board. And it's all based on things we already know and probably already have experience or we already know exist for other people. And we think we want from the mind. And one of the biggest teachings in human design is that the mind is not here to make decisions, like always follow your body, right? It's the same what you're sharing. I just learned it through that modality in some way. And the unknown is this big field of unlimited possibilities, the 99.9999% of where all the magic is, all the things that we have not even tapped into. And yet, this is what we are most afraid of because we don't
0 point. Yeah.
know, right? It's such a conundrum when you think about it because as I'm talking about it, and I have talked about it numerous times, it's like we should be freaking excited when we don't know because like you say, it's the birthing of something new. It's the darkness, how the seed and the flower and anything in nature starts, right? In
Yeah. Yeah.
darkness, in the
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
with patience, taking one step at a time, keep watering the seed in the soil eventually. And then sometimes we have quantum leaps happening where it sprouts really fast. And it's just for us to surrender into this. And I mean, nature teaches this to us, right? Left and right. And it's still so hard for us to just do it or to embody it. And that's why I love that we're having this conversation. We have lots of spiritual teachers that are talking about it in different ways and different perspectives, so that hopefully over time we can all collectively really start to embody our truth and invite the unknown with so much love and curiosity and excitement, right? And one thing that keeps coming back to me that came to my mind when you were sharing your story first of, working in the retail industry, and then you felt like something is off. What I feel is that with how the world is evolving, so for example, retail industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're probably not the only one that in the retail industry has felt they're off purpose and no longer resonate with it. And then you have the courage to leave it. Not everybody does, but let's say everybody has the courage to leave it. And now with the emergence of companies like Amazon, everybody buys stuff online these days. More and more stores are closing. I think you hear it on the radio almost every day. More and more retail stores are going bankrupt. They're closing stores. So in a way, your body already knew what's happening in the future,
Mhm.
like your job would have been gone probably at some point anyways, right? Because the
Oh,
landscape is shifting. And so
yeah,
we already know when we follow our body. So when we are no longer dependent on these external happenings where all of a sudden, oh, you get fired from your job. No, you already knew before, you had the courage to leave. And now this change is coming. And well, that's okay because I already felt this inner calling to leave the retail industry, right? I just kind of saw it like collectively, like when we all trust ourselves, like the change takes care of itself and it's not a threat to any of us.
yeah. And anywhere where we're feeling a threat, right, or any fear, knowing that that's a program.
Yeah.
So, two, just in listening to you, two qualities that I'm feeling strongly guided to bring forward that if you embody these will literally change your life are curiosity and humility.
Hmm.
So, curiosity and humility, the more that you deeply anchor into them, the more you move through these cycles. You complete your cycle, you move forward, you evolve, you ascend.
So I would love, let's get a little bit practical. How can somebody use curiosity and humility in their daily life to align more with their authentic path and purpose?
Yeah, so humility is about the willingness to be the student. It's about leaning in to the fact that you don't know everything and you never will know everything, right? And knowing that through having humility, through having the willingness to learn, to go deeper into what you don't know, which is where the curiosity comes in, right? That opens doors for you to your evolution. So a good practical example in your daily life could be something that you experience that triggers fear within you, noticing that and being willing to step into an observer role and ask yourself, first acknowledging, wow, that's bringing forward fear in me or anger or whatever the emotion is that you're experiencing, acknowledging it and then going within to inquire as to why, being honest with yourself as to why you feel like that, and then taking it even a step further and asking yourself, well, what can I do to shift this? And so I'll say, when you can literally follow what I just laid out, right? To uncover more truth about yourself and to heal yourself as well. It is important that when you are deepening into this humility and curiosity, that you are in a space where you're feeling neutral, right?
Mhm.
Not in a space where you're feeling desperate or upset, because that's when the lower human mind, right? The ego mind can um, cause things to feel confusing for us, right? I mean, all of us have experienced it. You've had something that's triggered fear within you, and then you go into reaction mode. Well, why is this, well, how can I fix this? React to fixing this, right? All that does is that keeps you in the same perpetual cycle.
Mm.
So the way forward is, a good way forward. It's not the only path forward, but it's a practical, simple, effective one. So that would be an example of where humility and curiosity come into play. You're just willing to go deeper. You're willing to open the door to explore.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I want to also share something from my own journey as a highly sensitive, empathic person, which I'm sure you yourself can really
Oh,
relate.
yes.
Because I
Yes.
had a peek at your human design chart. You're an emotional projector, and you only have the 1949 channel in your
It says the in
unconscious.
connection is the channel. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, consciously, you're like a reflector, actually. Like, there's so much openness in your chart, so you can feel so much, like, you can take on so much. That's so beautiful. Because to get to this place of humility where we are always the student and a place of curiosity, I had to give myself permission to unfollow the mainstream self-development world,
Mhm.
or the coaching. Like I had to, like, literally on Instagram, I unfollowed everyone. And then I slowly started to, because there are some accounts where people are actually like you, like they are actually inviting you into curiosity. They're more about, hey, do what feels right to you. But anytime where there is the energy, and I still have to be so careful with that, where there is this energy, I have the answer for you. This is how you have to do it. Trust me, this is how it works. Like it disempowers me because there is this like absolute of somebody outside of myself telling me what my truth is or what the truth is, you know, and oh my gosh, it has been a year-long journey for me and to really realize it. And it's still tempting now because there is so much noise out there of
Yeah.
this very persuasive, this is a secret formula, and it's just creating distrust and disempowerment within ourselves, right? So and what also started to happen as I made that conscious decision to no longer follow that, not to make it wrong, because I also it actually had a gift for me that I realized that about myself. So I had to experience how disempowered it made me to then also be able to let it go, right? And yeah, now I just feel really grateful that I started to actually attract more and more mentors, coaches, and you know, guidance, which I think is always important for us, that are very much like this energy that we are talking about, where it's like, so my mentor now, so it's all about marketing, but in a very conscious way. But he's like, I'm never gonna tell you what to do. Like always do what feels right to you. I'm gonna tell you all my experience, all my knowledge and everything, but it's always this very empowering energy of like, please only do it your way. And I think that's just what we need more of. And it's not about complaining about what we think is wrong, because I used to be there myself too, where I was like, well, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't just talk about making 6 and 7 figures, right? But it was on me to stop giving that my attention, because then it automatically disappears from your realm of consciousness. And then there's no longer the demand for it. And then I'm also, because if I'm complaining and I'm saying this shouldn't be this way, like I'm resisting it and it kind of grows even stronger. But when I'm just like, okay, this is part of what we have in the world, it's serving some purpose for sure. It definitely brought up a lot of my shadows, which I'm very thankful for. And now I get to choose, where do I want to shift my attention to, which is super precious, right? And our time. Just like you had this moment with your mom and the emails from the corporate job. Do I follow the noise, the busyness, the persuasion, the truth people are claiming, or do I follow my heart and my inner truth?
Yeah. That's where it's at. Yeah.
I love it. So you also work, I think, with the Akashic Records. This is definitely a topic I've talked about here in the podcast many times, also some of my colleagues. I would love to hear a little bit about that, your experience or how you work with them.
Yeah, earlier in our conversation, we were talking about various certifications, modalities we've pursued training. I believe all those experiences that we have serve a purpose to essentially open more and more higher frequency gateways to discovering, the truth of who we really are and living expressed as that. The Akashic Records are definitely one of those paths. They were very significant for me on my own ascension journey. I became self-taught in the records, and then I did pursue a mastery program for a year where I went much deeper. And then for a time, I also taught the Akashic Records, and I do still teach the Akashic Records live on occasion. I have a self-study program on my website that's available for people who feel guided to go deeper into navigating their own records, right? But for those who aren't familiar with the Akashic Records, essentially the Akashic Records aren't just a modality, they're actually an aspect of you. Akasha, which is a Sanskrit word, essentially means consciousness, right? So imagine there's this just limitless field of consciousness that exists, right? And within that, all of these living beings, us included, we each have our own Akashic records, which are basically the storehouse of information for our soul. So not just Jennifer, who she is in this current incarnation, but Jennifer, who she is as a soul, as an oversoul from the dawn of her birthing, her existence, you know, up through this now moment. And time in of itself is a linear thing, right? It's an illusion really in of itself, because there really is no time. Like, we are having all of our soul's experiences are happening simultaneously, putting things into compartments of past, present, and future, this place or that place. It helps our human aspects to be able to comprehend, right? To more easily digest the enormity of all that is, essentially, right? But your records are all of your soul's experiences, all of your emotions, experiences, lifetimes, beliefs, and they are an extraordinary space for you to be able to work with, to not only receive clarity on your path, but to really be in a quantum field of healing yourself. So when we have that curiosity, that humility that we were talking about earlier, wow, boy, will your Akashic records open up to you, right? Because what you receive from working with your records is also directly connected to your willingness, right, to receive the information. Because sometimes our human selves can say, you know, it's just like if someone's a smoker, let's say, and they want to quit smoking, right? They're like, well, of course I want to quit smoking when you ask them that, but it's an addiction. And so they may say, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 10. I want to quit. But then you're tuning into their field, right? And their body is really saying, no, I'm really only at like a 4. I'm not ready. So if you say you're ready, but you're not ready, then there's going to be resistance to that, right? So this is where that curiosity and that humility, again, really comes in, because the more you lean into those, embodying those qualities, wow, your Akashic records will just open up to you. Because a lot of the trauma that we need to heal, or the things that are required for us to shift into a higher frequency, yeah, there is a lot when you're initially peeling back the layers that has to do with your current lifetime. But there's even more of it that exists in your subconscious. And it all gets carried in your body. And what I mean by that is that your physical body is actually a multidimensional gateway. Beyond your cells, into your atoms and your electrons, those are gateways to all the different dimensions of you. So when you can connect with your Akashic records and work in your Akashic records, right, to shift into those higher frequencies, you're simultaneously healing all of that. Does that make sense? Like, this is a topic that can be very deeply explored, but that's the very, very high level, barely scratching the surface of what,
I love
of
it.
how tremendous the records are.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Because I know some of my listeners, they may be, yeah, really intrigued by it. And I have also personally worked with one of my mentors and colleagues with, she went into my Akashic records. I've done it several times. I've always found it incredibly powerful, definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing and doing this beautiful work. So how can people get in touch with you, and who is it that you work with? I know you already touched upon it a little bit, but would love to give you
Yeah, so privately, so I tend to attract a lot of spiritual visionaries who are also healers, people who are way showers, people who know that they're here paving a path, not only for themselves, but one where they're meant to share their wisdom and gifts to illuminate the way forward for others in their own ascension as well. So those are a lot of the people of who I work with. Now, I want to add to that to say that a lot of times, especially when you're someone who you know you're being called to something bigger, right? Imposter syndrome is common with that, right? Because you're like, wow, me, really? You know? So you don't have to be on a world stage or already totally embodied in being that visionary, right? You just know that you're being called to something greater. And I am really here as a spiritual mentor, a channel, because I'm also highly intuitive and a multidimensional healer, to help you, to guide you on your path to bloom into that and whatever that looks like for you. So your unique lineage, your unique gifts. That's what I'm here to do. And like I said, on occasion, I teach the Akashic Records. I have a self-study program on my website for those who are interested in that. I still do also offer single Akashic Records readings, especially for people who aren't as familiar with them, so that they can have the chance to experience what it's like to be on the receiving end of that and then decide, right, if they want to go deeper.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so you can find Jennifer on her website. I'm going to put that all in the show notes, jenniferspor.com. Also, I'm going to share your Instagram. You have a YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also your podcast, right? The Awakened Heart podcast as well. And I also think you have a little free gift for everyone. You want to share about that?
I do. Yes, I have an amazing free gift. It's called Highest Destiny. It's a meditative journey that's channeled through the Akashic Records, and it's perfect for those who are in this space that we're talking about, right? Who are feeling called to expand into more of the truth of who they are and the greater purpose and or mission that that they're here to fulfill. I've received tremendous feedback on that meditative journey, and that you can listen to it multiple times and you'll receive new insights every time. It's like taking your own journey into the records. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. I told you already. I'm gonna check it out myself. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here with us, for sharing your heart and your soul. I really can feel your pure intention behind everything. And I so resonate with your message. We could probably talk for hours and days.
Yes.
And
Thank
yeah, my pleasure. And thank you, listeners, for being here with us, for listening, for your curiosity and humility. We're inviting you into that as well. I really love that today, the whole concept about curiosity and humility. And yeah, with that, I'm sending you all my love, all my blessings. Again, thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'm going to be back with you all on the next episode. Bye, everyone.